Joyride trip y'all doing? The man that can't.
Good morning and namaste, everyone. Welcome to Living Truth 365 for our Truth and Trending Topics service today. We do this once a month. I'm Reverend Jada.
I'm Reverend Jada.
I'm Reverend Terry.
And I'm Reverend JC.
All right, we got Reverend JC in the house, y'all. Yes, so this is Truth and Trending Topics. Now, our theme for this month is Be Love and Reach Out. Be love and reach out. And I'm going to say our affirmation for the day is God is the source of my supply. I'm just going to put that out there.
Amen.
God is the source of my supply.
I like
Okay?
that. I like it.
All right, so we have some trending topics, basically what y'all are talking about. Ripped from the headlines. And you know what is hot? This Keith Lee story.
Uh-oh. He
Y'all
done
know
came to
about
11.
Keith
He done came to
Lee?
11.
Keith Lee he's a vlogger, and what he does is he's a critic of restaurants. And he goes around to restaurants and he tries their food and he gives him his critique of the restaurant. Very basic kind of thing, but he is a very personable guy. Used to be an MMA fighter, and he now has parlayed this into going to mostly mom and pop places or places that are not very well known and trying their food and giving a critique, and the public has just responded to it because he's so honest in his critique. He doesn't bash the place. He gives an honest response, but it's not nasty. You know, there is no covert kind of messaging going on. He's simply trying the food and giving his honest response.
Opinion.
And he's such a kind and gentle soul that, you just want to support him, right? And the businesses that he has been doing his critique of have reaped enormous benefits from. He has literally saved some restaurants. He'll give his critique and they'll have almost no customers. He'll give his critique and next thing you know there's a line out the door. And the restaurateurs are so incredibly grateful. But he has this huge following online, millions of people. And so now what he's doing is he's traveling around the country. And he's starting to take a look at black-owned restaurants. And so he had to come to Atlanta, to the A, the new Black Mecca. And there was a bit of a kerfuffle about his critique.
Right.
And it kind of, I guess people are saying he exposed Atlanta.
Exposed Atlanta.
He exposed Atlanta. So what do y'all think about what happened?
All right, let's go. Keith Lee exposed Atlanta. So at this table, I am the person who was born in Atlanta. I am an Atlantean. And in the words of an Atlanta native, Atlanta, you need to get on your job. That's from our brother T.I. Atlanta, get on your job. Atlanta has a culture, and Keith Lee, he's a sweet, gentle guy. He's an MMA fighter, so he has that yin and yang. He can beat your tail, but he also is going to use his words and use them wisely and kindly.
He's very zen.
Very zen, very calm. And in his critique, I mean, he gives critiques. He's more so a restaurant critiquer, critic. But Atlanta, when he came to Atlanta, he kind of exposed the culture of Atlanta because of what he experienced with the customer service at the different restaurants. But I would like to pose a question. Is it Atlanta's fault? All right, now, Atlanta, in truth, is acting like exactly what it's named after. Okay, so Atlanta, I got a story for you.
Okay.
Atlanta It's named after a Greek goddess called Atalanta. So Atalanta. Okay, so quick story. Atalanta, her father leaves her in the wilderness, assumingly because she's a boy. She's raised by a bear. She's a revered hunter, and she is fast. She can run. Sha'Carri Richardson fast, okay? She gets acclaimed for her hunting, and her dad steps back into the picture, and he tells her, you got to get married, old school. And she was reluctant, so she agrees that she'll get married if a suitor can beat her in a race. If they can't, she gonna kill him. She spears them because she's a huntress, okay? So she has a few races. She kills a few suitors. Finally, there's a suitor named Hippolymus or Melanin or Melanion. Keith. In other versions, okay, that's his name. He prays to Aphrodite because he loves her. He says she's a good hunter. He likes to hunt. And Aphrodite is the goddess of love. So that he can win the race and marry her. So she gives him 3 golden apples to help him. As their race is going on, he places the 3 different apples, and she stops and picks up those 3 different apples. She admires them, she kind of ponders them, but she stops the race or her run and picks those apples up. She loses the race, of course. She doesn't seem to hold it against him, and she learns to love him, and then they both enjoy hunting and just having lots of fun together, killing those boars. And after a hunt, they get caught up in the throes of passion, and then they enjoy themselves in a temple. Zeus punishes them for defiling that temple and turns them into lions. That's the story, all right? The moral of the story is greed and gold and sensual temptation. So let's get back to Atlanta. If you think about Atlanta culture, it is steeped in greed. People are flocking to Atlanta just to be faking and flogging. That's the word I use. They be flogging in Atlanta. I will never go to a club in Atlanta and I don't enjoy myself because nobody's dancing. People popping $1,000 bottles for $100. The bottle's worth $100. They spending all their money. They scamming. They acting like they just got it. But then once you get to their house, they sleeping on the floor in a mattress. That greed and that gold and then the temptation of Atlanta itself, it's alluring, the Black Wakanda. But people are being fake. They're not running their race the way they're supposed to be running. And Keith Lee exposed that culture of Atlanta. Atlanta's never going to win the championship in my mind. The Falcons never going to win. The Hawks never going to win because they so...
Watch out now because you're going to have death threats against us.
Send them to me. I'm all right. But Atlanta... The reputation of, it's the fact that there's Atlanta culture. There's a reputation of Atlanta, of the scammers, scamming all day, of, being fake and not being who you are, being greedy, trying to get your money, not, really doing good for yourself. She was a hunter. She was a racer. She lost her race because she saw those 3 gold apples. Ma'am, you could have been living your life. And then you got turned into a lion because you didn't know how to do right once you got married because you was defiling that temple. So Atlanta has defiled itself in a way to me. Now, I love Atlanta. There's no place like Atlanta. Being away from Atlanta, 2 hours away from Atlanta, I do miss the brunches and the pork chops and the lamb chops and the mimosas and all that stuff. But we don't got that in Columbus. We don't have that. But I really think Atlanta needs to rise up. They need to show awareness of what it is, take responsibility, and just be better.
Okay, so let's just talk about what happened.
Go ahead.
All right.
I'm sorry.
So what happened is Keith Lee came to Atlanta and he went to specific restaurants that are trendy. I would say. When you say they're kind of trendy, so he went to the Breakfast Boys, he went to Old Lady Gang, he went to Milk and Honey, and it did not go well for him. It did not. The service was not up to par. The food was not the best. He gave his honest opinion, and the backlash was intense for him. He got a lot of hate, death threats. There were death threats to the restaurants. The restaurant's response to them, initial responses to them, was not well, and it kind of exposed this, what you were talking about, the Atlanta culture of fakery,
the flogging,
focus on celebrity. Because when he would go to a restaurant, he would go in there as not
Just a regular
undercover,
person.
just as a regular person.
He usually
He
sends his
doesn't-
wife and his sister because people know him now because he has the following. So he'll send someone else into the restaurant, and because they hear Keith Lee, then people will, put the to-dos up for him and, throw on their white gloves. So he'll send other people in there. But he couldn't get to-go service because, they were getting off the plane. He wanted to get to the hotel. It was so many rules. That's what he exposed to, the rules to the restaurants.
Yeah, he exposed the rules to the restaurant, and the backlash was intense. It was actually on the news.
It made headlines.
It made the local news.
Atlanta, they had meetings. The restaurateurs had town hall meetings with themselves after Keith Lee came and exposed Atlanta's culture.
So how do we look at this from a truth perspective? What the backlash was?
First of all,
scene.
it sounds like a bunch of frackinackle bull. People are having this kind of reaction. It's like you're putting so much into somebody else's opinion about things. And I guess with this and a number of other things, that when I'm looking at this and first of all not understanding why people feel like they've got to make death threats against somebody because they don't like what that person has said or what they're doing, doesn't have anything to do with them, but they're going to kill somebody.
Keyboard assassins.
Yes, Lord.
Well, no, in some cases it's more than keyboard assassins. Depending on the venue, especially when you get into politics, there actually are people getting on planes and getting in cars coming to look for people. And fortunately, we have not had anything where somebody has been successful, at least not in recent history. But it's this idea of us and them. It's a failure to recognize our oneness with one another, and that we can disagree with one another, but it doesn't have to get to where I got to kill you because you said something that offends me. So from a truth perspective, the other thing that I'm hearing about that possibly could be a bit of a truth perspective is the town hall meeting about, self-examination. I don't know whether they got together and really examined themselves or whether they said this is how we're going to fight back or push back against this. But, part of the thing with our walking our path of truth is that at some point we need to reflect on who we are and what we're doing to see if we're in alignment with spirit or out of alignment with it. And if we're out of alignment, what we can do to get back.
Well, when I moved to Atlanta in the early 90s, there was the Atlanta moniker, Atlanta is a city too busy to hate. I don't feel like that.
Aged well.
I don't think. I don't feel like that aged well at all. And this is not the Atlanta that I came to. This is now an Atlanta that is hyper-focused on celebrity, hyper-focused on kind of this materialism.
But I think the question is why? Why are we? I mean, it's not just Atlanta. It's really across the board. Really it's worldwide in a lot of ways that people have this idea that if I have something, I am somebody, or because I am somebody special, look at me at what I have, and it's this idea of what I have. I'm identifying myself or creating myself through what I have rather than creating what I have through what I am. And, people are buying into this thing that if I have, I was in a barber shop a few weeks ago, and one of the barbers was talking about this really nasty breakup that he had with his girlfriend. He said that he had spent all this money, got her big screen TV and all this stuff, and he just got to a point that he just broke out, left it all there, because he couldn't take any more of what was going on. So his plan was that he's going to stay in this hotel room, pay off 2 car notes, and then once he gets the 2 car notes paid off, he's going to turn around and get himself a Mercedes. So I thought the idea about paying off the 2 car notes was a good idea. Get yourself where you're debt free. Why do you need the Mercedes? I mean, I didn't say anything to him, and for him, it's a status thing to kind of show that he's made it to some place. And for me, it's like, I don't need to have a Mercedes to show that I've got status. I know within myself what it is that I have and what I'm worth. That's just me.
I think also the other way that Atlanta has been exposed is that it seems sometimes that some of the restaurants and maybe some of the other establishments as well are no longer focused on having the best product for the people who are supporting their business, as opposed to being seen and, you know, and stuff like that. So a lot of the rules they're putting in are not for the regular everyday person that's coming to support your establishment. You know, they're so that they can have space for when those high value, well, I don't like that word.
High spending.
High spending, high value customers
And
come
maybe
in,
not.
as opposed to those who come in every day and support on a regular basis. So I think that's what's seen. Jeremy, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation. Well, first off, in Atlanta, it's $100 to come outside. You know, anytime you just want to walk
Soon as you
out.
hit the door.
Yeah, like it's a little man that stand outside the door, and you just gotta give him $100 as soon as you leave out the front door. But with that being said, the part that I think that we kind of not necessarily addressing is the role that we play as consumers, because we set the standards for what we accept and what we allow or whatnot. And it goes back to us not being on the same page as a people to a certain extent. You know, the same way that, you know, we used to be able to boycott places back in the day. Now, I mean, I don't know if you tell everybody, oh, we're not going to Arby's no more, then it's like, if somebody at Arby's, you know, I'm at Arby's on Instagram, like, yeah, I'm going to Arby's, I don't care what they say, you know, it's you know, the togetherness, you know, in terms of making things better for the whole is not necessarily there. And then in terms of being a consumer, a lot of people aren't vocalizing, you know, this stuff. Like, and it's from the taste of the food to the service to whatever. Like, we just kind of accept things. You know, I was at a restaurant maybe about 2 weeks ago, and somebody ordered their food and it wasn't good, and it was like, man, it's not really good. It's not, you know, it's not quality. Like, it's not up to par. And I was like, okay, well, why don't you tell them? And it was like, oh, it's all right. And I was like, well, you paying for it, you know, you want to get what you're paying for, you know, maybe they might need to do it again, or, you know, maybe they missed something. And it was just like, nah, it's all good. And I was like, and so it was one of those things where you get mad at somebody, at something for somebody else. Like, you know, how you ain't upset at this?
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
so with that being said, I think that a lot of it comes back to us as consumers to say something about it and to, you know, to vocalize that.
So I think we can all agree that one of the positive things that came out of this situation was self
But we're so focused on I got to get paid instead of what it is that I can do. It's the law of compensation in action. When you give more.
We're not doing that with each other. Whoopi made a blanket statement about millennials and about what they not doing, right? And then Calvin felt the need to defend the millennials. And everybody's just talking about from their perspective and their side, as opposed to, well, let's work together. And it's interesting because Gen Xers seem to be out of the generation.
Because we're working. We just got our hands down and
We
working.
seem to be out of the generation wars, but you see it a lot where especially the baby boomers and the millennials, but also the Gen Zs and so forth, are constantly arguing as opposed to figuring out how to this. So that's my thought. Let's hear from Millennial.
I think it's everything that both of you have said. Actually, there is a lot of finger pointing. You did this. You guys aren't doing this. And really, when I thought about it, I put it into like the steps of prayer. Recognize and acknowledge the numbers. Men lie, women lie, but the numbers don't lie. The inflation numbers, all the numbers that the young man that he gave him. I was going to start, to defend. I was going to look him up, but I said, no, he gave them to me. Thank you. Thank you. But, acknowledging that. But then next is the unification of it. Where's the disconnect? I think with the finger pointing, the back and forwards, I think that some of the boomers think we're making excuses and, that we're whining. And really, we just want to be acknowledged instead of being told that you're whining. No, we're crying. Okay? We're moving through it. But, as you were saying, they are, the boomers are our proverbial parents, our aunts, our uncles. But we're all on a life journey together. You're on your parent journey, your aunt journey, your uncle journey, whatever it is. All of you are, every single one of us is on our life journey here right now. Can we agree that we're all adults now? We're moving through life together. Can we find a common ground instead of placing blame on each other? Instead of saying, that you guys didn't follow our way? And I think that's a conversation, especially with my parents. I use my father. He has done exactly what has been told. Worked for 40, 50 years. He has a good retirement fund. He has life insurance. He told us what we're going to get when we get older. It's going to be nice. All the good stuff. He has done it his way, and you cannot tell him that his way isn't the right way. And that's where we have a disconnect because things have changed and he doesn't necessarily understand it. At one time I was working at a place, he said, well, baby girl, you need to put on your suit and tie, basically, his way of saying it. And I sent him a picture of everyone in the office and people had on slides and basically bathrobe, everything. And he was like, oh, baby girl. It's a new day, but his office because he doesn't do casual Fridays. Like it would be tough to work for my father in his office, right? Because but he did it right. He followed his path, and so as we communicate now, it's a little bit difficult, and it's like, oh, you're not saying as much as I'm like, what's a little difficult to say right now, there? You know, when I'm getting it.
If I can just put a pin in that for a second, that's been the ability to save and to pay yourself first has been something that people have struggled with, not just these last generations, but thousands of years. And this is kind of what I'm alluding to. It's not that I don't think that there are different problems, but it's the way that we look at life and how we approach it. That's been, you know, at some point you've got to make a decision about how it is that you're going to show up, and whether or not that you're going to take that step to save regardless of what's going on. And I know that circumstances may come up that may make that seem impossible, at least temporarily, but at what point do you come back and get on to what it is that you know, program? But I interrupted you, so I apologize.
No, and with that, you know, that's where
whether or not that you're
help
going
us.
to take
You
that
know,
step to
teachers show us.
save
I know, you know, we're all on our path, and we're here together. We might not. Some people might not know how to write a budget. Some of us, our budgets may be different. You know, how you save and
New math.
you know, yes, this new, core math, whatever this is, put the 2 around the corner and then bring it back at the end because it came from the first number.
Here's the thing I'm going to tell you. I got this from the richest man in Babylon. The same sun that rose yesterday is the same sun that's rising today. And whether it's new math or old math, 1 + 1 still equals 2. Principle. Every generation has the opportunity to learn principles to live life well. And we teach those here. We do our best to teach and embody them here at Living Truth. Regardless of whether you're young or old, principle works because it's principle. And whether the way that you implement it may be a little bit different, but principle is principle.
Stop your whining.
Every generation
Jeremy, we want to hear from the other millennial in here.
Well, 89, so I don't know where it falls into millennial.
Just made. Just like you made 89, you just made.
Okay, all right, well, I'm in that category. So there's like an elephant in the room, though. I think when we're having this conversation, and that elephant is the industrial media complex that exists in terms of, you know, us living in a capitalistic society. People are
Just like you made 89, you just made.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm in that category. So there's like an elephant in the room, though. I think when we're having this conversation, and that elephant is the industrial media complex that exists in terms of, you know, us living in a capitalistic society. People are way more influenced now than they were. Like we're bombarded from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep with, you know, commercials and thought patterns and you name it. What the song say? You name it. Like that's how it is. Like, you know, like it's so much more difficult and challenging to like focus now. You know, I think me and Reverend Sharon was just talking about. She asked me maybe like a month or two ago, when was the last time you got still? And I was like, what you mean? Like, I go to sleep, you know, I take a shower, you know, I put my phone on the charger, you know, like, when she was like, when last time you got still? I just, like, didn't answer your phone, didn't, and I was like, I feel like I can't, like, you know, like, the way my life's set up and the way that it's like, I gotta be available. I gotta, you know, somebody might want to buy or sell a house. Somebody might need to, you know, like, it's gotta be available. And so I do think that we are in a different time and space when it comes to the impact that social media has on people. We just came through the pandemic. That, you know, was a whole different thing in itself, you know, that none of us, you know, were prepared for or, you know, were, I guess, adequately prepared for. I guess that's the better way to put it. But I do think that plays a large role in the gap that is between the baby boomers and the millennials, and just in terms of putting a divide, like there's a big debate on social media now that's like like we was talking about time earlier. I think somebody said something about time. So they no math. Yeah, I was like, that's new math. So they got something called girl math and guy math now. I don't know if y'all familiar with that.
No.
Yeah, so they got girl math and guy math. So it's literally like we just keep getting these things that are dividing us and you know making us you know look at stuff from a divided perspective. And that's you know that's money in advertising. That's you know like it's the big machine, the corporate wheel that keeps turning. And the variables that used to go into those things were, you know, kind of normal things back in the day, you know, like, oh, they want to, you know, have more families, you know, going to picnics or have more families taking vacations. So that's how, but now it's like, oh, we want to have, you know, people outside dancing on top of their car, doing, you know, just, it's no, there are no gatekeepers no more. There are no, it's like the standards aren't really there no more. And I think it kind of goes back to, not trying to get political, but I think it goes back to Donald Trump to a certain extent. I think that when his brand of presentation, his brand of engagement, his brand of politics or whatever you want to call it, like that in combination with this pandemic, I think it just literally gave way to a platform of people just doing and saying whatever they want to say and whatever they want to do. You know, like I just say the moral code is not the same code anymore. I feel like it's whatever code you want to have now instead of it being like a standard, you know?
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think that the effect of social media and us really being a 24/7 media world definitely has an impact. I will also say to you that perhaps not in the same way, every generation, my generation getting still and taking time out, it still was neglected, just the same way. We had other things that were bombarding us, but when people are not going to step up and take control of their lives and the way that they think and what it is that their mental diet, there's always going to be something that you can find to distract you, to keep you from doing that. It's easier now because of social media and that you've got like all these different, you know, it's not even cable channels anymore, these different platforms.
Like,
they can be on.
like you don't even exist. Like if you don't have Instagram or you're not involved, like it's like, am I even
I'm feeling that on the opposite end as a baby boomer, that I feel really out of touch with what's going on. So I'm kind of getting it from the back end that there are a lot of things that I just can't relate to, and I'm trying to find relevance in the world at my age that, you know, the world is not going to change for me, so I've got to adapt to the world and try to find a way to make it work for me on my terms. But the world is not going to change, and it seems like that the pace of change is accelerating. That, you know, what you knew this week, next week, it doesn't mean anything. But at the same time, when you get back to principle, this idea of getting still and connecting with yourself, that's something that people have struggled with and had difficulty with and either have not known to do or have been unwilling to do for thousands of years. That has not changed.
I think I get you with principle is law, it doesn't change. I think the principle that we all are missing is that we are all one with absolutely everything. So we're choosing to be separated. You're choosing to be separate from Instagram. You know, you're choosing to be separate from, you know, what your parents understood or their knowledge. We're choosing to be millennials versus boomers versus Gen X or whatever. We're choosing to be separate, and that's, I think, where the conflict is coming from, instead of recognizing that we are all one with absolutely everything.
So I think the one of the answers in truth to this segment is synergy. You know, understand what just happened between Reverend Terry and Jeremy is a good example of what should be happening. That kind of communication, where people start, oh, I didn't know that you were on the outside of this communication and you're feeling like this. I didn't know that you feel like I'm not even present unless I'm involved in this kind of social media world. I don't even exist. That's something you said. So I think that's the kind of communication that should be happening. So, you know, from a truth perspective, this divide really requires us to, as Reverend Dre said, understand that we are one. that what happens to one is happening to all. And there's a synergetic aspect to this, which really, when you talked about change, helps us, move into our next segment.
But one thing before we get into change, and it still speaks about change. Jeremy mentioned COVID, and in my opinion, COVID was a collective consciousness of everyone wanting to slow down and reconnect with themselves. Everyone. I mean, it was all of us in this. I feel like consciously said we want us to go home.
Here, we need a minute.
We need a minute, please. So in the oneness, if we could get back to a collective consciousness of that we're all one, because we've seen it happen. COVID occurred because of it, right? If we remember that we are all one, regardless of age, generation, then we can get to a synergetic level of this change. Because like you said, change is happening at a rapid pace. Change is constant. It's always going to be happening. And if we can work together to understand that I am you at 65, you are me at 37, and et cetera, and I don't know your ages in the Generation X, working hard, that crew and all that good stuff.
We working.
Head down. But if something, in truth, if we all consciously say, okay, yes, there's a problem. Let's stop the finger pointing. Let's stop, and like you said, let's have these good conversations with each other and understand. I never would have thought that you feel left out. I thought that you were standing in your, I don't need Instagram, posture, because some people,
I have come to realize that is not going to help me to function and do the things that I want to do. So if I want to stay isolated, I'm fine. But if I want to be able to reach out and to, especially with what we're trying to do with ministry here in 365, this is the venue. So either I participate in it, I can fight against it, but it's not, I myself am not going to be big enough to change anything. I don't have that kind of influence. So I've got to some extent get along with the program and learn how to use it. That's part of my spiritual path, of learning to do this and to be able to reach out to people, to younger people, to have them help me, because that's also a humbling experience too. That it's like Reverend Sharon and I don't have our own children, but at some point the children become the teachers.
Oh, master, grasshopper. But yeah, so just the shift in truth, we can shift it and bring it into change where we're all together in consciousness.
Which I think is a good example we have coming up about how that's when we do synergize, when we do become one, we can make change. We've had some major strikes happen in this country with the Screen Actors Guild and the American Federation of TV and Radio Artists, also known as AFTRA, and the United Auto Workers, UAW. These people came together and decided we are going to get benefits for all of us to move forward. I thought it was a really magical thing. I mean, they sacrificed. I think the SAG after people were on strike for 7 months. That's 7 months of not having a paycheck come in. They had mortgages, tuition, all utility, everything that we pay for.
Life was lifing.
Then suddenly they driving Ubers, and Lyfts, and DoorDashes, Instacarting. But they held the line to reap the benefits that they knew that they deserved in order to make their lives easier. I thought it was a magical thing to happen. And I think what was really interesting, particularly in the UAW strike with the auto workers, is that the auto workers put in a provision so that there could be more electric cars. It was not to their benefit. But they were like, we know we are in a different era now. And we can't rely on oil anymore. So yes, we are going to make sure that, look, we need more electric vehicles. And that may mean that they may not be as many workers, but we're willing to make that sacrifice because we know that this change is happening.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable.
It's coming. It's here. It's here.
Right? And they looked at the bottom line. It's like, you guys are making all this money. we should reap the benefits because we're the reason why you're making all this money. It's same thing with the Screen Actors Guild, is that 2008 was their last contract. But that was before streaming. That was before this internet explosion. And they were like, so now they're on the Netflix series, but their check is $22. And they're like, okay, we living in a different age. We need to go back to the negotiation table and do something. I credit this to Gen X
All right.
and the millennials
Come on.
who said, look, we're not accepting crumbs. We're not going to accept crumbs. It doesn't make any sense. We will all be better if we look at the reality that these changes are happening. And we're willing to sacrifice to say we're not going to work until you give us a better deal in our contracts.
I think that overall that it was a positive movement. It required a lot of faith and just use of spiritual principles for, not only the people at the top of the unions, but the rank and file to be able to make it through because, as you said, people had mortgages to pay, mouths to feed, and they were still committed to what it is that they needed to do. So I think in that respect it was very good, and that you also had it may not be the right way of putting it, but you had people like Fran Drescher and other big name people that lent their voices and their presence to help those that were around them. So it wasn't just that, it's all about me or I got mine already so I don't have to worry about you. That was a way of them reaching out and really connecting with their comrades or their people. And I'm want to be careful about using the word comrades, that we're not painting people as being socialists or anything like that. But, just because I'm making a lot of money doesn't mean that I can't remember what it was like to struggle as an actor.
To be loved and reach out.
Yeah, to be loved and reach out. And that was a way that they were able to be loved and reach out and to support those people that were like them.
Andre?
Well, it was, what was also interesting to see was that sometimes it does not translate. Sometimes when you have moved out of the realm of the quote-unquote regular, everyday folk, that you can't necessarily always translate what you're experiencing now to what they're experiencing. Because there were a few actors that came in that tried to
Cross those lines. They did cross those lines.
no, not cross the line, but try to come in with their own suggestions on what can be done to solve the issues with the strikes. And, Fran Drescher, as the president of the Guild, did a wonderful job of helping them to understand, like, it's great that you want to do all of that, but that does not affect what's going on. It doesn't affect every day. It doesn't affect what we are looking to do. Because, some of the wealthier or more well-known actors was like, well, we'll put more money into the whatever and all that kind of stuff. And they said, that doesn't help.
That doesn't solve the underlying
That's not solving
problem.
the problem. So sometimes, it's interesting to see that sometimes that disconnect, that makes the separation wider than what it could be, even though they were trying to reach out and be loved.
You just made me think about a story that I heard from Wayne Dyer listening to something on the internet recently on YouTube. Talked about there being this, I'll say a country or a village that was at war with another village and they lost. So their warriors got taken and they put them in this prison kind of like in the middle of town where everybody could see them and they knew that the people were locked up. So you have these four philanthropists that come along, and the first one approaches the people that won and said, I'd like to donate my entire fortune. I see that they don't have good food. I'd like for them to have good food. Will you let me do it? And they said, sure, you can do it. So he sells everything and they get good food. The second one comes along and says, I see that they don't have good water to drink. I'm willing to give all my fortune so that we can have purifying plants and we can have it where they can have good water to drink. And they said, okay, we'll let you go ahead and do that. And he does it and they have now water. Another person comes along and says, I'd like to donate my fortune to providing good bedding because I see that they're sleeping on rocks. And will you let me do it? And they said, sure, you can go ahead and do it. He does it. So now they've got food, water, and they're able to be comfortable. The fourth philanthropist comes along and goes and finds the key and unlocks the cells and takes them out in the middle of the night so that they're free. So what I got out of it is that depending on what our mindset is and what we believe is possible, we'll look to find a way to suffer through things and to ease our suffering. But it takes a different mindset to be able to see what we can do to actually free ourselves and get out of the circumstances.
You better teach on Reverend Terry.
Yeah, that's the Reverend Terry.
There's some truth up in here.
So when I hear that about Fran Drescher, it's that, yeah, I think that was a wonderful thing that they were willing to give up more of their money, but it wasn't really addressing the issue that was going to give them that freedom to be able to do what they needed to do.
True that, true that.
Yeah, it was really an example of we are one in both all of the strikes. And I think that it dispelled the Hollywood myth of unions not really being for the workers. And you look at, mob movies and things like that, we all have this picture of Teamster unions always being infiltrated with mafia and not really for the workers. And there was a concerted effort on having leadership make sure that the general public, who were not union members, just the public knew these are the issues, this is what's at stake.
Right, and it's not just a bunch of spoiled rich people looking for more money.
Right.
I had no idea. I mean, not that I had no idea. I knew that the actors' strike and, the writers' strike was going on, but I wasn't as plugged into it. I think my faith was in, it will be figured out, in a sense. So what is commendable to me is the community, in it all, in the UAW. Like, I just heard about that when we had the conversation this week. Because I don't watch the news, and I'm not plugged into those things like that. So it's the community of it. I always, think about the civil rights movement and Dr. King speaking in Washington. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have the internet. How did my grandparents get to the March on Washington? It was through community. It was through the conversations they were having at churches, in the town halls, in the meetings. Everyone coming together and saying, this is the plan. This is how we're going to do it, and then executing. And that's what happened in those strikes. This is the plan. We're going to figure out how we're going to do it, and we're going to execute it. We're going to stay strong. It's going to be a tough fight. However, we got the faith because we know that we deserve this. And I think that's the true principle. We all deserve peace, love, prosperity, the joy and the spoils of life for the work that we produce instead of, being taken advantage of and being prostituted, for your image and for your writing ability. And now your streaming services, paying you pennies on what is worth,
Yeah, I think it's worth knowing too that even amongst the owners, there was dissension there because you had different agendas about what each of them wanted. So you had the streaming services, you had the movie studios and the television stations or the television media. The needs of the streaming services were at odds with the other people, and they were the ones that really held up the negotiations from really moving forward better than what they did.
But I think that one of the lessons of We Are One that came out of this, so many other people learned it or got to witness it and made changes. For example, there's a Toyota plant somewhere in the South. I think it's Tennessee. I'm not sure. But when the UAW contract was voted on and approved, they immediately gave their workers, who are not UAW members, a $9 increase. Because like We Are One, it's like it seems as if, and it happened with Volkswagen also, there are the foreign entities
Well, they're trying to also stay competitive.
Yes.
They have a different cost structure than, it's not the big three anymore, but the American automakers, because they didn't have the unions to deal with. But they're also recognizing, so we've got a bunch of things that are happening within our economy that I don't think people realize how it works. And I kind of see this in a bit in my work in independent schools because, or private schools, because as many of you probably know, going to private schools is expensive. And as we're looking to set tuition every year, there's always this fear that we're going to price ourselves out of the market. There was something, a study done by, I think he was an economist called Baumol, that explained why that's not a problem. And when you really think about it, there's a lot of truth with this. So he explains that what I said before about productivity, people get paid more money when you're more productive, and that primarily is through technology. So if you come up with a better mousetrap that does things quicker, cheaper, the money is going to flow there. The people that come up with the ideas to do that are going to tend to be paid the big bucks. And so as that draws workers and dollars out of other parts of the economy, particularly in labor-intensive industries, like in schools, you can't be more productive in a school or in medicine, because that would mean that you've got to teach more kids. The reason that I'm sending my child to private school is that I don't want them to be in these huge classes like you've got in public school. So if the money and the personnel are flowing out of that field like it is in teaching, how do you get those people back? Because at a certain point, you're graduating with a master's degree, and it's, am I going to start here for $35,000 a year, or am I going to take this $100,000 a year job that I can start at? So, you start to shift things around. Well, the way that you get it is the people that are in the labor-intensive industries, you've got to pay them more money because now there's a shortage. And that starts to bring up their standard of living to be able to pay more. Therefore, those people that are in those other industries, it's like the tide lifts everybody up. They will be able to afford the higher tuition or the higher payment. And you only have people coming to these schools that buy into the value of the school. People don't select private schools based on money. They base it on the value that they think that they're going to get. So it's kind of like if you drive a car. If you drive a Mercedes, you're not coming over to Volkswagen because it's cheaper, because that's just not the kind of car that you drive. Now, you may go to another brand that's like comparable in terms of prestige, but it all has to do with your mindset and what you've trained yourself to look at or what you believe. And again, this is a mental universe. So this is how we're indoctrinating ourselves with how we think, with how we look at the universe, and how we believe that we can interact in it.
Be teaching Red Terry.
This is truth and training topics. I'm trying to give some truth.
Like it's like
You better tears, all right. Well, it's time for us to move into our last segment under the topic of change. And so we, two stories. There's a man by the name of Reverend Bubba Copeland in Alabama. He's the mayor of Smith Station. Must be a very small space.
I've got to do one correction. He was.
Yeah, he was. He was the. That's cold.
I'm sorry, but it just brings up the I guess the harshness of the story as you explain it.
Okay, he was the mayor of Smith Station, and he was the pastor of First Baptist Church in Phoenix City, Alabama. And he had an online presence as a person who cross-dressed or
her name was Brittany.
presented trans as Brittany, and he had this online presence and very effervescent and stylish and everything, but he was outed, and his online presence was made known, and it was done by a right-wing publication that wanted to shine a light on him and shame him. And as a result of his outing, he committed suicide.
So you need to give a little bit more of the history. What happened with the pastors?
Go ahead with the pastors.
Well, basically when it became known, he was pastoring a Southern Baptist church, and the ministers that, I don't know if they were just in Alabama, but at any rate, there was a letter that they wrote to him that his peers signed that basically told him to step off. And that seemed like that was the straw that broke the camel's back. His wife, it seems like at least was aware
She
of...
knew about it.
Yeah, she knew about it and she supported him. So, it's this idea that we have to hide who we are because we're afraid that it's going to offend someone, and not really their fear of it offending someone, but the consequences that are going to come out of it. And that in this instance, I have a thing that I don't really say very often, but religion prevents us from being good Christians or whatever it is that we profess that we want to be. There was nothing Christian about, I think, that letter that was written to him, that was supportive, that showed love, that basically was, you're not one of us and you don't belong, so step off.
Yeah, so our theme is be love and reach out. So the letter was be hate.
And took them out.
I think also the other piece to it, not only was he the pastor of the church and was the mayor of the town, but he really did a lot for the community. And his intention, he had set his intention to help raise the standard of living and bring the community together. So I think he put in all that effort and did a lot of work to support that community, and he did not feel like he was getting the support back. So it wasn't just the fact that, his choice to cross-dress was revealed. And it wasn't just that letter came from the leaders of the church. It's that he wasn't getting any support after all that he poured into the community. And if he would have at least gotten some of that support, even if the leaders of the church had said something, but if the community would have come and rallied around him, then he may not have felt that was a decision he had to make.
I live less than 5 minutes from Phoenix City. If I park my car in my house, my time goes to Central Time. I'm about 20 minutes from Smith Station. And, this guy, his community could trust him. Bubba was a nice guy. He was harmless. He wasn't a hypocrite. He didn't gay bash. You look on his church site, they were quiet affirmers. Somebody on his Facebook page asked, do you affirm? And affirming is, do you affirm LGBTQ+. And they didn't answer, they just put a like. The church just put a like. So he wasn't hypocritical. He just had a secret, and he couldn't trust his community with his secret. But his community trusted him. And it speaks, like the things that he did, the good work that he did, he had signs out. He put a campaign out to say, someone loves you, and, you're not alone. And those type of sayings for signs along the highway going into Phoenix City and Smith Station. And it was like he was talking to himself. You're not alone. Someone loves you. And being just 2 hours away from the big city, there is such a difference in a small town mindset of that area. Me being there, me being LGBTQ and showing, I'm not hiding it or anything like that. I've had a few instances of go back to your corner, young lady or young man. They tell jokes, they have little jokey jokes. It's crazy to me. It's wild to me. They were only 2 hours away from the big city, and they call it the big city. And this guy, he couldn't be here. He didn't trust anybody with his secret, but they trusted him with all their secrets. He led their community as a cross-dresser. He led the community through COVID, through tornadoes, through poverty, moving up, trying to come out of poverty. And all you could do was you could say, I'm going to out you, and he didn't trust his own constituents. And that's really what hurts, because everyone online is an outpouring of, he did such a good job. He did so much for us. He was harmless, but he harmed himself. And it breaks my heart because, I mean, we're like, if I get on Facebook for my Columbus friends or whatever, or, you know, you see it on, I don't watch the news, but it's this little boy who he's a newscaster in his heart and his life. And he'll leave school and he puts stories out. So I see, you know, they're talking about the funeral planning. The town is having to move through something very tough with someone, about someone who has helped them move through a lot of things that have been tough. And I don't think it's in vain. You know, my belief in truth, you know, we all made the decision to come down at this specific time. And once we learn our lesson, then it's, you know, we return to whence we came. Hopefully this is going to bring the community together in ways that they had no idea, you know, the blind spots that they had. Because what he did, he took his own life in front of a police officer. He was speeding erratically, and, you know, they stopped him. So one of his guys, somebody that worked for him, saw him, you know, do that. And the story about that and the way it feels in the area, you know, people talking about it, and then they're not talking about it like, yeah, you know, I haven't heard anybody say, yeah, he deserves it. I haven't seen that he deserved it, his ungodly self. And even his church, yes, the church wrote the letter, that was like the higher part of the church. His sector of church, they believed in separation of church and state, which is big, even though he was a part of church and state. But having the separation of church and state, and then also, you know, affirming the LGBTQ plus, not, you know, he doesn't have any sermons online that anybody can see where he's saying, you know, you're going to hell in a handbasket. The church was a progressive, right-leaning church. You know, he was quietly progressing them. So maybe this is going to be a push for more progressiveness. Hate that he lost his life.
Or it could be a push back in the opposite direction too.
We're going to lean towards the other way.
Well-
But it's a real thing. I mean, you know, in the area. I mean, I can continue to talk about it. I really can.
So you're going to be loved and reach out?
Absolutely. You know, absolutely. I mean, I'm there, and actually, someone from his church, I lost my wallet one time, and they sent me an email or something on Facebook. They found me on Facebook, and reached out, and it was a white guy, and he, you know, looks exactly the part of country Alabama, and he was so gentle to me. I think he went to his church. He was so sweet to me, and he offered me to come to church. And the moments that I've had before being in that small town, some of them that look like him have not been so kind. So it was a good, you know, it was refreshing. Like, well, we met at Publix, and I love a Publix sub. And he said, well, you know, we getting a sandwich. You can come to church. You know, he invited me to the church that Bubba actually was pastoring at the time.
Well, we continue to send positive vibes out to that community. And Reverend Brother, who is no longer here in the physical, but we know life doesn't end. And which brings us to our other story about the transition that's in the process of happening with the Reverend Carlton Pearson, who is currently in hospice or under hospice care right now. And he has, I believe it's, what form of cancer he's dealing with?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't remember, I'm sorry.
I just can't think of the word. Anyway, so he's in transition, and he is messaging out to the people about knowing that he's in transition and that life doesn't end, and that he will see us on the other side. And it's a pretty graceful way, I think, to communicate as a New Thought minister, which he had become. From being a Pentecostal minister, he became a New Thought minister, and learned some lessons. And he got a lot of backlash when he
Had a new thought.
That there was no hell.
They crucified him.
Right.
He done been through a personal public death, you know, in a sense.
So he's going through another one, and in my opinion, I think he's handling it gracefully. Comments?
I think he's being himself. in it, and I do think with his new thought, he's trying to help people because he's touched so many people's lives. He's trying to help them through this transition. He's accepted it, obviously, and I believe from what he has learned to be true for himself, true for himself and heaven and hell and where it is and who gets to go if he doesn't get to go, whatever the stuff that he changed from. We know it's the state of mind, and I think he's trying to show the people that it's the state of mind, and I'm okay, guys. I understand that this death is just the beginning to the next chapter for me as an eternal being. It's a little bit showy, but he's been showy,
He's been
That's
himself.
He's himself. He's been himself to the end of what we see. He got his hair cut and his hair still holding on top of his head, and he got his beard and all that good stuff. You could tell he's a little gaunt. You could tell he's moving through that transition, but he still look like his little self.
Like Carlton Pearson.
If he could get up and dance, he would get up and dance and sing a song.
He did sing a little bit.
And I think
A
that
little bit.
the responses, I think, from the public has been overwhelmingly positive. I have seen some traditionalist Christians talk about watching a heretic die. And I was like, wow.
So again, religion is keeping people from practicing being good Christians. Reverend Sharon told me that she read one post where it said, should we be praying for the heretic as he dies? And it's like, well,
Why wouldn't you?
why wouldn't you if you're a Christian? Or if this is what you really believe, if you're a follower of Jesus, why would you not pray for him, even if it was that, you prayed for him to repent from whatever you believe that he did that was wrong, but why wouldn't you pray for him or wish him well? Again, it's this idea of not recognizing our oneness with one another and with spirit, and that somehow he's the other. I'm going to heaven because I've done right. He's going someplace else. He's not one of us. Religion can be very, very divisive and prevent us from, if we allow it, will prevent us from connecting with one another and being able to accept one another and to be loved and to reach out.
And I think those kinds of articles really exposes that.
But
It exposes-
a traditional Christian will not see it that way. They believe that it's their duty to make that distinction and to draw that line, because in drawing that line, that shows they're on this side, which is good, rather than the other side, which is evil. So inherent in the way that many of them believe and practice, there has to be that separation, that weeding out of, the chaff, getting rid of that, so that only whatever's left, that's what's going to heaven, because this is a belief system.
I think another wonderful thing about what he's choosing to do is sharing his experience, right? A lot of, and everybody has their right to move through their transition experience however they choose to move through their transition experience. But oftentimes it leaves, especially those people who have followings and are well known, it leaves their followers confused, scared, shocked, because I didn't even know they were sick, or I didn't, and all of a sudden
What happened?
what happened, or the experience that they're going through could help somebody else as they go through their experience, or their supporter family or friend who's going through the experience. So I think it's beautiful that he's choosing to show that, and that's the way of him reaching out and being loved by showing that experience. So I think that's one of the other beautiful things about it. Yeah.
I think it's the epitome of being loved and reaching out. It's because I'm sure it's scary, It's something we all going to have to go through, and to have someone open up and allow us to witness
And stand on their truth.
and stand on their truth, no matter what label someone has given you.
Stand on it.
Or maybe letting people know that it's really not scary.
Okay,
It's really not scary.
all right. So those are our trending topics, truly trending topics. And we're so happy that you all joined us today. whether you are online with us or you're here with us. Thank for the millennials showing up
One time.
and giving us their input, and really starting a conversation to talk about we are one, because we are. So what happens to one happens to all. All right, so we have some announcements, don't we?
We do. So who wants to have, there you go.
All righty, guys. So I'm going in the right direction. I'm going in the right direction. All righty, guys.
So let me get this real quick and we'll get,
Rocco is going to be here, the world-renowned Aramaic biblical scholar, going to be sharing more of his wisdom and knowledge with us. You don't want to miss it next Sunday. Went in the wrong direction. All righty. Join us for after Thanksgiving service. Oh,
well, so it's not going to be Thanksgiving Day. It's going to be the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So it's our after Thanksgiving service where we will come together, have a service, and talk about what it is that we're grateful for having and just practice gratitude.
Thank you, Reverend Terry. I was a little confused by the wording, but all righty. So, guys, we have the opportunity now to go ahead and make sure that we participate in the gift of circulation, giving and receiving. So if you have Tithely, if you want to use Tithely, you can set it up. These are the instructions for setting up Tithely. If you text give to that number, you'll get a link where you can go ahead and create your account. And then whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and participate in this gift of circulation and sharing. And then we also have the wonderful Cash App at $LT365. $LT365. So I'm going to give you guys just a moment. If you want to go ahead and do your little Cash Apping.
Cha-ching.
Cha-chingin', cha-chingin'. All right. All right. Alrighty, so let us go ahead and do our gift of circulation affirmation. We're going to do it together 3 times. There is no lack or limitation.
There is only infinite abundance,
And through my giving, I tap
Into the infinite flow, and I am one with it.
There
There is no lack or limitation. There is only infinite abundance. And through my giving, I tap into the infinite flow, and I am one with it.
One more time.
There is no lack or limitation. There is only infinite abundance. And through my giving, I tap into the infinite flow, and I am one with it.
Now 3 times to seal the deal.
I am tapping infinite prosperity and sharing. I am tapping infinite prosperity and sharing. I am tapping infinite prosperity and sharing. And so it is.
All right now. So every Thursday we have moments of meditation where we explore the peace, the power, and the presence within. We've been having a wonderful discussion all month long about renunciation, releasing, letting go, and surrendering to. And so join us every Thursday. It's via Zoom. If you don't have the link, let us know. We'll make sure that you get the link so that you can join us for this time together. Nora Foundation, that is Dr. Rocco Errico's foundation. He has 2 ways that you can participate. He has the Aramaic School of Light that you can come to on Saturdays, on the second Saturday of the month from 1 to 3. The cost is $30 per class, or you can do his online class every Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. And there's a love offering for that. Okay? And guys, get ready.
What?
Get ready.
About to go down.
Get ready for divine flow, guys. It's going to be a wonderful evening of metaphysical spoken word. Oh, doesn't that sound nice? Metaphysical spoken word. Snap, snap. Join us this Friday, the 17th of the month. And it's going to be a $5 donation here at Living Truth 365. There's going to be a wonderful evening of spoken word. There's going to be some light refreshments. Come on out. You might even, be moved to say a couple words. Who knows? You don't know what may happen. We don't know what may happen that evening. It's just going to be a wonderful divine flow. So join us for that. It's going to be at 8 p.m. right here at Living Truth 365. And guys, as always, truth checkers. We have our November hike every third Saturday. So this time we're going to be at the Alachi Nature Center that's up in Gainesville. It's about an hour away. It's a beautiful hike. We've done it once before. So join us at 9 a.m., not 8 a.m., 9 a.m. for the hike. It's going to be absolutely wonderful the third Saturday of this month.
Christmas concert,
Thank you.
the Spelman Morehouse Christmas concert. We are gathering around with LT 365 on Saturday, December 2nd, 7:30 p.m. Sisters Chapel on Spelman College's campus. We're gonna need to be there early so we can get a seat because Sisters Chapel is not as big as the
right.
MLK Chapel. So, so gather around with us on that Saturday, December 2nd, 7:30, Sisters Chapel. We're just going to have a wonderful time together enjoying the Spelman Morehouse Christmas concert.
Right, sounds wonderful. And guys, get your t-shirt, get your reppin' tee. Reverend Jada has on her reppin' tee this morning. She reppin' consciousness, alrighty. And so we have all different kinds of reppin' tees, and we have other t-shirts available as well. We have this one. We have the Truth Be Told t-shirt. We still also have our anniversary t-shirt available for you on that website. All proceeds go to Living Truth 365 and the programs that we have. So please join us in participating in that at kafanistudios.etsy.com. Alrighty. We online, y'all. We online. www.livingtruth365.org is our website to find out more information about everything that we have going on. You can go to that website if you want to ask questions, if you want to send us a message, you can do that on our website as well. So check out www.livingtruth365.org. We are online. We also are on Facebook. We're on and Instagram. So check us out on those pages as well. And if you're watching now, then you know that we've moved from Facebook Live to YouTube Live. So join us here. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button so you can know every time that we go online live or we upload a new video. And then guys, we are so grateful and we thank you so much. These are just some of the images from all of the donations that you all made last week for us to put together the blessing bags. We had a lot of fun doing it. We had a great crowd and we were able to go ahead and do 60 bags. 60 bags. So we were able to do that. We included little affirmations in there as well, so we're cutting those up to put in the bag. But we are thankful and grateful for the donations, whether it was monetary or if you brought in items for the bags. It was really, really good. We're very appreciative for it. And so Reverend Jada was able to take it to the Atlanta mission. Tell us a little bit about that.
It just so happens that everything that was in our bags was on their emergency request list. So it was right on time for them. So we really did winter bags for them that they loved. So the hats, the gloves, the socks, the toiletries, that's exactly what they needed. So it was just a beautiful experience, and so thankful that you all were able to participate. And if you ever want to give another donation to that $LT365 Cash App, and just put in the memo line donations so we can do this again.
Wonderful. So guys, I think that is all we have for today. I want to thank you all so much for joining.
And if you ever want to give another donation to that $LT365 Cash App, and just put in the memo line donations so we can do this again.
Wonderful. So guys, I think that is all we have for today. I want to thank you all so much.